Hi guys, it's Steph from IDRIVEACLASSIC, and today I'm back in something absolutely incredible. It's something that I've never driven before and a totally new mark for the channel. It's a Rolls Royce Shadow 1 and it's something totally different. Never done it before, super luxurious, so I already feel a little bit intimidated by it, but what an exciting drive. So I can't wait to take you out, but first of all I'm going to show you around the outside of the car, bring you on the inside, give you a little brief tour of the inside, show you under the bonnet of course, and there's a lot going on in this dash panel, so I'll be showing you all that and talking you through all of that, including the electric seats, because they are awesome. There's so much going on in here. Anyway, let's cut to the chase and we'll go and take a look at the car. It's not every day that you get offered something this exciting for IDRIVEACLASSIC. Now, as you well know, I'm a British Leyland girl through and through, but when I got offered this car, how could I say no? It's something totally different and it feels quite imposing actually. It feels like such a posh car. Now, what I wanted to do today was to show you around the car, talk to you a little bit about bits and bobs, and give you a real appreciation of why this is such a magical car to drive. So when I was offered the car by Cameron, I will have to confess that my Rolls Royce knowledge wasn't the strongest. So as we look around this fabulous car, I thought I'd spec you up with a little bit about what I found out when I started researching Rolls Royce myself. So Rolls Royce started up in the Grim North in Manchester, and it was a luxury British car manufacturer, and they also manufactured aero engines. The perfectly decadent automotive brand was established in 1904 by Charles Rolls and Henry Royce, who combined their names to create the unmistakable and unforgettable Rolls-Royce brand. Now, Royce himself had a fantastic reputation with cranes and was seen as a superior engineer, which meant his feat of creating the best car in the world was not only entirely possible, but something which would be really respected as well. So they set off and they decided to make the Rolls-Royce car. Now, the early days of developing and manufacturing engines for aircraft went smoothly and they were doing the cars, but it all started to come unstuck in the late 1960s. So this wasn't really related to the cars, it was more related to the aero side of things. So basically the company were working on an engine and it started going a little bit pear-shaped, and it was all down to a toxic mix of mismanagement, badly managed finances, and in 1971 the business had to be liquidated. So there was, the 70s was not a great time for the British car industry. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on with Leyland. People always think about Leyland and they think about their troubles, but it wasn't just them affected, it was Rolls-Royce too. Now, the government did a lot of buyouts and different things, and we're trying to keep the car industry alive, not like now when they've let Rover sink, but I'm not bitter, honestly. So the profitable parts of Rolls-Royce were purchased by a government-owned company who quickly shifted the aero part of the business, which obviously was the troublesome part, and the business was named Rolls-Royce 1971, and in 1977 they dropped the 71 part and it became Rolls-Royce Motors Holding Limited. Rolls-Royce was then purchased by a private company and taken out of nationalisation in 1987. An interesting fact, a marketing survey in 1987 showed that Rolls-Royce was the second most well-known brand in the world, just after Coca-Cola. I'd like to know what it was now actually, because I imagine it'd probably be a lot further down the list after things like Apple and Amazon, but it really shows you where the brand was sitting, in the 80s. It's just incredible. Now that we've talked a little bit about Rolls-Royce, I thought I'd talk to you about the Shadow 1, or as you may know it, the Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. So the Shadow is a luxury car which was manufactured between 1965 and 1980, and interestingly it was the first car by Rolls-Royce to use the unitary body and chassis construction. The car was designed in response to fears that Rolls were producing outdated cars which lacked the modern finesse and engineering geniuses of rival cars and rival manufacturers. So they stepped up and they created the Shadow 1, which boasted disc brakes, independent rear suspension, which replaced the live axle that they'd used on other models. In essence, it was a good step up, and it was a good step up in the right direction. Now, the Shadow 1 that you see here today was made until 1976, and the Shadow 2 was manufactured from 77 to 1980. And fun fact, the Shadow has the largest production run of any Rolls-Royce ever made. to date. I tried putting Shadow into howmanyleft.com, which for those of you that have never used it before, it's quite an interesting website. It gives you a very rough idea of how many cars are left, and all it would show up was the Shadow 2, of which there are allegedly less than 25 left taxed and on the road, which is probably about the same as the Austin Mini Metro. And can you believe there were just over 30,000 made initially across all models, and when you consider the cost, they were insanely expensive, so it's quite good going really. But of the Shadow one like this model, there were just over 16,500 made. And another interesting fact is that Rolls Royce only ever used automatic gearboxes, so it's definitely going to be a different drive for me today. Now, we've had a good nosy around the outside, and I'm going to show you another nifty little quirk before we pop inside to have a look at the interior. And my God, we have got some amazing stuff to look at inside. It's just, oh my goodness, it's just so much luxury, and I cannot wait to show you, because look, there's footrests, there's everything. This car boasts absolutely everything you could need from a luxury vehicle, and I feel very privileged to be driving it today. One of the most interesting things for me is always trying to find the benchmarks of luxury when you take out a car that is definitely exceptional, and this certainly is. So one of the things that Cameron said to me, he said, when you put the bonnet down, you're going to notice it sounds like a bank vault shutting. So I'm going to shut it for you. This feels absolutely enormous. This is, look at the size of it. I feel like this bonnet is almost as big as my whole car. Anyway, have a listen to this. That sounds like one hell of a weighty bonnet. So come round here, I want to show you something else. Now, I noticed this when I was looking around, and I wondered if this was how you open the bonnet. It's not. This is actually, so scoot on in. This is actually, so if you hit a pedestrian, I mean, look, there's 3 tons of car here. If you hit a pedestrian, they're probably dead. However, they have put something in place to try and lessen the impact. Watch this. So your bonnet emblem folds back, but really, it's a very, look, that is not going to help much if you get hit by this. Look at the size of it. I feel like honestly, I feel like an ant stood next to it. This car is enormous, and it's definitely going to be the biggest thing I've ever driven. So now that we've had a look around the outside, we've had a look on the inside, it's time to hop in, because there is so much to show you guys, including, can you believe, and bear in mind this car was released in 1969, it has electric windows. Wow, I have got so much more to show you, so let's have a look inside. This is probably the most ostentatious vehicle I've ever driven, so I really want to do it some justice, because taking something that's special out is something that very rarely happens for me, and there's so much to show you. So the first thing that got me was, so Cameron's a lot taller than me, and I needed to adjust the seat. I felt underneath, and he said, "Steph, it's electric." I was like, "What? It's electric? A car from the early 70s? Honestly, I was shocked. So I'm going to show you. I mean, look, they move at a glacial pace, but have a look anyway, see if you can watch on the camera. So you've got these little chrome knobs down here, bring you on in to have a look. So you see these? This is drivers, and this is passengers. So watch, they tilt, they basically go all the way. So you can, hold on, we'll see if we can get us on camera moving. Right, try that. Can you see it? God, that is so good. I love it. Absolutely love it. And they move all ways as well, so it can move back as well. Essentially, it's a really good little setup, and there's quite a lot of other stuff going on here. So some of this that I'm going to tell you is quite interesting. So if you see over there, you've got a map light. That's for your passenger. So say you had a passenger with you and you were trying to work out where you were going in the very heady pre-sat-nav days, that's what you would have had, and it switches on. So I'm going to get Cameron, my very glamorous assistant, to reach forward, because he's a bit, can you reach forward? I'm going to reach forward, and we're going to show you what that looks like. So it's just situated up on the ceiling there. Now as well, you'll notice that there is a Yale lock, so we'll switch that off, and there's a Yale lock, and that is the lock for your glove box, and that is because typically a Rolls Royce owner wasn't sitting with a couple of shillings in there, it was usually a wad of cash. So they said, right, put a Yale lock on, it increases the security, and it just makes things a lot easier. Now there's a lot going on this dash. In fact, it almost feels like there's too much going on for me. So you've got your panel lights, you've got your radio balance, so you've got your radio down here as you saw when we look around, but you've got your radio balance, you've got your clock, and then I've got to show you this radio aerial, so it feels very Thunderbirds as it goes up. So you just watch, and I'm going to push this down, and we're going to show you the aerial coming up. Hold on. And it's absolutely enormous. And if YouTube wouldn't, I'm going to put that back down. And away it goes. So look, there's a lot going on in here, and it's just incredible. I mean, look, these are your vents for your air. Look, I'll show you. So it opens like that, but they also twizzle right round. So it's like, look, there's just nothing that this car is missing. It seems to have everything. It's even got cruise control. Now, for some people, they might say, well, what's it say? You've got it just here. So you've got your engage, your resume, your on and off. Now, people would say, is that genuine? Is that aftermarket? That was fitted at the time this car was purchased. When you just think about the 70s, and you think about some of the other cars on the road. I mean, look, there is so much going on here. It's incredible. You've got all your standard Smiths gauges. So you've got your fuel, you've got your amp meter, just measuring if your battery's charging or not. You've got your speedo, and then you've got a few other bits over here. So you've got your lights, you've got an oil light. This section, actually, if I'm being super critical, feels a little bit less advanced than some of the other controls. But look, there's so much going on in here, and I'll just show you this down here as well. So you've got all your heated controls down here. So this needs a radio going back in, but look, you don't always get everything when you come out and take a test car out. And you've got your heater controls over here. You've got all your bits like your hazard warning lights. You've got all your rear demist. But I'll just show you, look. So with that, you just push it in and then pull it out. But yeah, look, there's just so much going on. There's like gratuitous chrome everywhere. Just got everything. It's just, look, even your cigarette lighter, it's chrome. Just everything, honestly, everything about this car, it's just been so exceptionally designed. It's fantastic. So there's a couple of things I'm going to do before we head out. I'm going to have a chat with Cameron and ask him who buys a Rolls Royce in their 20s, and why would you do it? Because I think that's a really important thing to discuss. So we're going to ask Cameron a few questions about this car, and also I found some more booklets and things in the glove box, so I'm going to show you those as well. And I deliberately haven't opened them because I want to discover them with you guys, because I love like looking through and just having a quick look. So let's cut to the glove box. Now, I found this in the glove box, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's the Rolls Royce instruction handbook, which was given you when you bought it, and there's an awful lot going on in here. So open it all up. Oh God, the GSM on this paper is brilliant. So you've got your service. So this car from new has all the service history. It's always been serviced by Rolls Royce. I mean, look, it's a great car, and there's so much going on in here. Everything's in here. Obviously, I don't want to reveal too many people's personal details, so I'll quickly flick through that. But you can see that everything is all in there, all the details, all the requirements. All in all, it's an exceptional bit of kit. And as well as that, they've got this clearly, I mean, look, this is from 1988, so there must have been an aftermarket radio in here at some point, but it's the warranty for that. Rest in peace. You've got your sales and service from 1989, 1990. Again, it's just a little bit like when we looked through the booklet in the Rover, is that it kind of lists all your people, but this one is global, so you can go anywhere. So I know I've got some Australian subscribers. Let's see. God, there weren't many. Western Australia, you've got, well, what, couple in Perth there? That's about it, really. But look, it was a different time. It really was. But as you can see, look, you've got all sorts. So look, it's even separated down into West Germany. So it's pre-Berlin Wall. And as well as that, oh, this is beautiful. Look, you've got everything in here. It's just, it's lovely. Look at this. So this would be your original one, where you've got your British Isles distributors and retailers. Really, really nice. That is lovely. So look, so this one obviously was his, whoever the original owner was must have relied on this, because it's crossed out and it's got a different name in. I mean, it's just a different, I think it's just a different time. It's a slower time. It's a time when things were a little bit more considered. So we've got a few other bits in here. So I mean, look at this folder. This poor folder's falling apart. So I've got to be really, really careful not to break it, because I think Cameron would absolutely murder me. Just slide that back in. Back in there. God, they say that plastic doesn't break. It clearly does. Right, going to have to be a case of this is something I've done earlier and we'll put it back in later. And as well as that, you've got, oh, this looks good. Information for owners taking delivery of the new Rolls Royce Silver Shadow or Bentley T6. Oh, look at this. This is good. This is nice. Look at this. We'll look at this first. So this is 73. So this must be original to the car. But look, you've got everything. So you've got, so that's obviously been put in at a later date. But you've got your crook lock. I mean, you'd want to put a crook lock on a car like this. But as we go through, it just teaches you basically how to drive the car. But this, look, this is, again, look, it's things called the cigar lighter. You've got your door armrest. God, this car has everything. Rubbish for somebody like me who's too short to even put oil in it. And again, you've got a couple of other bits as well. So care of exterior paintwork, so it talks to you just about how to look after your paintwork, and somebody's obviously made a note there of which products they've been using. And again, just radio. So this is actually the radio that's in the car, just teaches you how to do it. I guess whoever had it, oh, here we go, look, they haven't sent off their card, but it tells you the date of purchase, which was the 31st of May 1974. It's got all the, oh wow, it's from Lincolnshire. They lived in Lincolnshire. Fantastic. So it's supplied by, and it was sent over to Crewe. God, they had a bit of a drive, didn't they? So it was sold, so the people that installed it were based in Crewe. The car was sold in Norwich and it went over to Boston in Lincolnshire. It's quite a drive, actually. God, so I guess they didn't send it off. So I think Cameron's lost the chance to get his warranty on it now. But yes, lovely bit of history. And it's always nice to look through stuff like this, because I think quite often things like this get lost as time marches on, and it's just beautiful. And as well as that, so I mean, you've got loads, because I mean, look, this isn't a car that was cheap. You also got this. I mean, it's bound up like a Bible. In fact, I've seen Bibles that are less weighty than this, and this is literally all about owning the car. So it shows you really everything. It almost feels like a bit of a posh Haynes manual, this. Look, you've got everything. It tells you, look, so somebody's obviously made notes in the book and kept it, which is quite sweet, really. Some people would say, oh, you know, it's a shame because it's not, you know, original, but I love stuff like this. They've obviously just chucked receipts in as they've gone along. What's this for? Oh, it's for the Kenwood radio in 1990. God, that was expensive, £60. Look, there's so much going on in this book. We've got all sorts of receipts and things that have just been forgotten about as time has passed. And I love little things like this. And you just feel like you're looking into, you know, a piece of history. It's really nice, really nice. And again, it's that quality that I was talking about with the bonnet, that you feel like every small detail has been thought about, and even right down to, you know, the collateral that you get with the car. It's great. It's certainly not something I've experienced in my British Leyland cars. Now, before we take this car up for a drive and we start it up, I wanted to have a chat with Cameron, because who buys a Rolls Royce in their 20s? Why have you bought a Rolls Royce in your 20s?
Well, why not? They're not as expensive as you think. They are. There's no excuse. they're not a sensible car. Then they're not cheap to run, but everywhere you go, it's like an occasion. So,
what's your MPG in this?
It does about 20 miles to the gallon, which isn't terrible considering it's a 6.8 litre V8.
Okay.
But it's not brilliant, so we don't use it that often, to be honest.
What do you predominantly use it for?
We tow our classic caravans with it. It's 2.5 tons, the car, so it's got a lot of weight to it, which is what we need. So yeah, we probably don't do more than a couple of thousand miles a year in it. Otherwise I'd have to remortgage the house. So yeah, we just sort of run it to the shops occasionally because it's funny.
Ridiculous.
Never ever take it in a multi-storey car park, because you have to do a 3-point turn on every ramp down.
Oh my god.
It's very impractical, but it's really funny. Why not?
Well, yeah, as I always say in these videos, life is for the living, and the more ridiculous the better, I say. So now that we've done all of that, there's so much more that I want to talk to you about with this car, and I need to take you out for a drive as well, because honestly, it's amazing. And I've only experienced it as a passenger so far, but I can't wait to get behind the wheel and start going heading off. Now it's time to start the car up, but just before we do, keep your eyes on this panel over here. Now it's got a very early fault finding system, so essentially you've got some bits and pieces to watch out for here, and when they light up, so they should all light up when you turn the car on, which they do in this case, and if they come on during your drive, you obviously know that that's a concern. So what we'll do is we'll go straight from having a look into this to starting the car up so you can hear how this Shadow sounds. So you can see there you've got low fuel, partial brake failure, and just your low pressure warning there. So sounds quite good actually. I'm quite excited to take it out. Gosh, this definitely feels like the biggest car I've ever driven. It's really different. So at this point in kind of the Rolls Royce history, it was the smallest car in the range at the time. I mean, I cannot imagine driving a bigger car than this. I feel like the next stage up would be a lorry or a bus. But the idea was that it was the smallest car in the range, so it could either be something that you were driven in or you could drive yourself. And I think, do you know what? Whether you were driven or driving, I think the experience is just unparalleled. Like, I've never been in anything like this before, and it's so beautiful to drive. And the first thing I noticed was the steering was alarmingly light, and I guess that I found it very light. I mean, what was I expecting? Why did I think that this wasn't going to have power steering? And it does, but it's so bizarre. So I've not driven anything with power steering for years and years and years, and it's the weirdest thing because the smallest touch on this wheel will start moving it, and it's taking a lot to get my head around. And also the spatial awareness factor as well, because this is an enormous car. Whatever you think, this is absolutely enormous. So a normal car is usually around about 5 foot sort of length. I think this is about 8 foot. It's enormous. It is honestly like I'm chartering a boat down this A road. But I love it. I think it's beautiful to drive. I wish that they would almost take this luxury and make it smaller, you know, to a metro size. It's really nice to drive. It's quite, even though it's, you know, you've got 3 ton of car, you've got 3 ton of car that you sat in, it's got so much power that you don't feel it at all. It's for the size of it, and you know, for just how enormous it is, it's actually quite nippy. It's speeding along, and you get that smooth drive. So people always talk about how smooth these cars are, and because I've never been in one myself, I've never been in a position to appreciate it, but my God, am I appreciating it. I mean, it is honestly, I could probably fall asleep in here quite happily. It's amazing, and all the noise is insulated hugely, so it's just as quiet, if not quieter, than in a modern car. The automatic change is, you know, the easiest thing to navigate. And it's worth saying as well, I didn't know this until Cameron told me, Rolls Royce don't make anything with a manual gearbox. All of them are automatic, so you know as well that technology has been invested in. And my God, I cannot believe that these cars, you could have bought one of these cars new 50 years ago, because it's unbelievable. Now, this car, I guess if you just saw it in a car park, you'd just be like, it's a big car and it is what it is. But look, it's almost, at its first glance, it's not the most exceptional car, but it's all the little bits inside it that make it such an exceptional drive. You know, it's the handling, it's everything about it, and everything feels like quite over the top and like super luxe, and I just love it. It's incredible. So I guess one of the questions that I had when I did a bit of digging online, and feel free to correct me if I'm not quite right on this, but I think that the purchase price new was around the 5 or 6 grand mark. And to put that into perspective for people that are watching abroad, or people that are maybe my age that want a bit of perspective on what that is the purchase price of a decent house in 1974. You could have bought a house in London, or certainly a property in London, or you could have bought this. And look, this is fun. It's I'm not sure which I would have picked. No, I'm joking. I would have been sensible and picked a house. But look, it's just incredible to drive, and it's such an experience as well, because like, look, for somebody like me who is, you know, middle of the road, you know, pretty average, an experience like this is such a privilege, because it's not a car that I get offered every day. It's not a car that, you know, would be easily obtainable. I mean, look at the experience. I want to share the experience with you, so I want to show you what it looks like down the bonnet, so you can see, you know, the bonnet emblem. You can see just how jolly long this car really is, and it feels very big front to back actually, and I feel very small driving it. But my God, what an experience! I mean, look, I've even got. Let me just fold it down to show you. Where is it? Cameron, give me a hat. Here we go. Look, I've even got an armrest. It's comparable to a home experience where you're sat watching television. It's absolutely immense. It's taking a lot of concentration to drive it because it is so big, and I guess one of the things that's really shocked me is that people are being quite funny about, you know, the whole reverse snobbery thing as I drive this. People are being quite funny and quite aggressive with me, not letting me out. Whereas, you know, in my other classics, I have kind of different experiences where people are like, oh, look at that's out on the road. Whereas in this, people are like, oh, you know, posh, you know, just, you know, being very disparaging and not letting me out in traffic, which when you're driving something of this size is slightly frightening. Now, I know a lot of you are used to me reviewing British Leyland classics like your Metro, your Montego, your Maestro, through to the, you know, the insane things like that Snuggie, and you'll probably be sat home and saying, Steph, you're reviewing a classic car that nobody can afford. Well, I'm going to come back at you and say I think you could probably afford this at a push. So for something of this calibre, you're looking probably between the 5 to 8 to 10 mark, which isn't that bad considering that I'm seeing things like Metros selling upwards of 3.5. I mean, yeah, I guess one of the things that you would have to consider is not just the purchase price on this, it's probably also the maintenance. So if you're handy with a spanner and you can spend the time finding out which parts cross over which, it's probably not that, you know, it's probably not that hard to run one of these, you know, not necessarily on a shoestring budget like some of your cheaper Leyland stuff, but you could definitely run this, I think, as, you know, like a Sunday classic, or, you know, if you were a little bit older and you wanted something that you weren't going to do a million miles in, this is actually probably a great shout. It's a nice car, they're not too expensive to purchase, and look, you know, I'm not a look-up manual, but I can tell you that there's a lot of different crossover with parts in terms of not necessarily your body panels because they were handcrafted in Crewe in Cheshire, but more things like your dials and your things like your brake calipers. There are other cars that, not necessarily all Rolls Royce either, that share the same parts. So you're in a great position that you're not necessarily having to buy everything that's stamped Rolls Royce, and there's plenty of, you know, support through different owners clubs and different owners forums. So there's always somebody out there who can probably advise you on a plan B if plan A is too expensive to get, because sometimes they just are, like, that's how life is. And you know, if people at home will be saying, oh, you know, like, nothing measures up in terms of quality, you know, it's so different. But I'm going to tell you a couple of interesting facts. So interesting fact number one was that the steel that's used to make Rolls Royce, and especially this age, they do rot quite quickly, which will be no surprise when I tell you this fact. The steel that, you know, as I said, the panels were handcrafted up in Crewe, but the steel supplier was the same for both Rolls Royce and British Leyland. So although it's, you know, this super luxury car, it's still rotting at, well, pretty much the same rate, and in some respects worse, because there is so much steel on this car. It's rotting in some ways worse than like your Minis or your Maxis and things like that. And as well, like, I mean, the leather in this car is absolutely unbelievable, but it was exactly the same leather supplier, the same leather quality as you were getting in your Rovers. So it's more of a case of, you know, when you, for the ladies watching or for the men watching, in terms of handbags or watches, it's the, you know, it's the components, it's the aftercare, it's the name that it carries as well. Those are the things that have made this into a premium product. It's not necessarily the raw materials, but my God, what a car. I mean, Cameron said to me, you know, it's not a car that's, you know, necessarily OTT exceptional in terms of handling and things, but for me, as someone who's driven a lot of cars from the late 60s and early 70s, I can honestly tell you that for the time and in comparison to other stuff, I know it's not comparable cost-wise, but my God, you can really feel, in my opinion, you can really feel the quality, and you can really feel the level of care put into the build of this car. It's exceptional. I love it. It's brilliant. Guys, it's time for me to hand the keys back, but this time I'm doing it slightly differently. I want to experience how the other half live. So I'm going to make Cameron chauffeur me home, and I've got my feet ready on my little footrest. I've got my little luxurious pocket here, and essentially I'm going to be driven home in style. So until next time, take care and drive safely.